Hello, boys. So today you've asked me why I have these football helmets up here, these little minis. Why such specific ones? Why USC Trojans? Why Michigan Wolverines? Minnesota Vikings? Sort of self-explanatory. So let me start with that. So Minnesota Vikings. I actually replaced the face mask to be something like Alan Page wore, number 88 from the Minnesota Vikings back in the 70s. So, of course, most of football has to do with my childhood. We sat and watched, my father and I, Minnesota Vikings games. Every Sunday, we got them in Iowa, every single game. That was the time of Bud Grant was their head coach. They played in the Metropolitan Stadium, which wasn't a naming rights. That's just what they called it. It was Minneapolis and the Minneapolis metro area. They had the Metropolitan Stadium, the old Met. Lots of snow, lots of cold. As you can imagine, outside there was no dome. There were no domes at all back then. Even the Houston Astrodome hadn't been built yet when we were watching this in the 60s and the 70s. So this just has to do with memories of my dad. This entire room, my shop, is dedicated to memories. I feel comfortable when I'm out here. I love all the things that I have. I'll get into all of them. But yeah, the Minnesota Vikings, Fran Tarkenton was their quarterback, number 10. He was fantastic. He started his career with the Giants. And then he came to Minnesota and led them to, I think, all 4 of their Super Bowls and lost. Their last Super Bowl was 1976, I think. But at any rate, and I think, if I remember right, they played in the first Super Bowl. That might have been the Chiefs and the Packers, I'm not sure. But the first Super Bowl. Yeah, I think I'm wrong about that. You can look it up. Anyway, Minnesota Vikings reminds me of my dad. Reminds me of, I would sit on his lap. I'd put my arm around his neck so I could kind of hold on. And we would watch these games. And we'll get into Michigan here in a minute. I do want to show you something. It's a picture I have here in the shop. I'm going to carry this over here. Let me make sure I can get this. So that right there is Fran Tarkenton, under center. And yeah, I found that on eBay, number 10. Love that dude. Anyway, he's become a Trumper, but yeah, still alive. He's a Trumper, successful businessman. Fuck that dude now. But anyway, Minnesota Vikings. Let me adjust this just a little bit. Why Michigan? So, in addition to watching the Minnesota Vikings on a Sunday, we would watch Michigan games on a Saturday. Michigan Wolverines. I've always loved this helmet. It mimics, I don't know if you know this, but the yellow stripes are harkening back to like the 1910s and 1920s. When they used to wear leather helmets. This was the front guard pad. These were pads on the top. And they painted most of it blue, and they painted those pads yellow. So that's why the Michigan Wolverines helmet looks like this. Anyway, same, watching it with my dad. Bo Schembechler was their head coach, and we used to love watching. Well, he did, and I got caught up in the excitement. Is it Bo Schembechler? Yeah, it was Bo Schembechler, I think. We would love watching him play Woody Hayes, who was the head coach of Ohio State. And we hated Woody Hayes in our house. So that's why Michigan. And then you may ask, why USC Trojans? So this is the USC Trojans helmet from 1979. I fell in love in 1979 because in the order I had Saturday afternoons free. I would watch, for some reason in Chicago, we got lots of the USC games, and I fell in love with Charles White, number 12, the running back for USC. He was the Heisman Trophy winner in 1979, and this helmet is signed by Charles White, and he does 79 because that's the year he won the Heisman. So I loved them. I had a USC Trojans hat. I would wear it in honor of Charles White. On January 1st, 1979, your Uncle Alex, myself, and our parents were snowbound in Iowa in the, what are they called? The Amana Colonies. You can look that up. That's a tourist area in Iowa. The Amana Colonies. We were in a holodome, if I remember correctly, which had an indoor pool, a mini golf thing, all of it inside, called the Holodome because it wasn't actually domed, I don't think, but it had an indoor play place with a pool and all that stuff. We were snowed in. You could not get out on the highway. We were on our way back from Wichita, Kansas to Chicago, where we lived after Christmas, and we were stuck there for like 3 or 4 days. So we watched the Orange Bowl and the Rose Bowl, and USC played Michigan in the Rose Bowl in 1979. I don't remember who won, but I remember just loving watching Charles White play. And I will take you over here again to see a photo that I have of Charles White. And I'm gonna make sure I get it up there high enough. Oh, those are my snap-on calendars I'll get to some point. That is Charles White, number 12. Love that dude. He was amazing. He died a few years ago, but I love Charles White. So that is why I have such specific mini helmets in my shop. Minnesota Vikings, which I've explained. Put that back up there. Michigan. You know why you now know why I love Michigan. And Charles White, my man. I love you both. Bye.